Here's the thing. I think I can double our growth in the next month and get us to 20 subscribers.
Hey man, if we double every quarter, eventually that's like 3 billion.
Eventually, that is every human on planet Earth.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable. I think the important thing is to set attainable goals.
I love that the sequence of that sentence. Every human on planet Earth. I think that's reasonable. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to NeverLag. I'm one of your hosts, Levi, joined as always by the man who fell in the pit, Zach. And this is another episode of NeverQuest, the show where we let our hair down and just kick back and shoot the breeze and talk about whatever and what games we've been playing. So if you're all about it, you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/NeverLag, or of course for free right here by watching on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you for that. And let's talk some games. What's new, Zach? What have you been doing? What have you been playing?
Yeah, too much work. Trying to get out of work to play games, and mostly Elden Ring. Really, I mean, it's kind of all encompassing. Like, I just want to go into a dark hole and avoid everyone and everything, and go into the lands between and not come out for untold weeks, if not months. So haven't quite been able to pull that off. I feel like life loves to get busy right when the best video game of the year comes out. So it's kind of where we're at, but I've been having a lot of fun with it. I keep being surprised by how much there is to do. So what about you? How are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. I mean, you just hunker down and play Elden Ring until the groundhog sees its shadow, right? Or has that already happened? That already happened, probably. So that means you get a full year.
Do you get like one of those government alerts when the groundhog sees its shadows, like an Amber Alert? Because otherwise, I have no idea how to tell.
That would be really helpful. I have no idea if the groundhog has seen its shadow or not yet. So
I don't either. So someone in the government
could be days,
needs to get on
could
that.
be a full year.
Yeah.
So yeah, Elden Ring is. We kind of had a delayed start to the game for reasons we've documented, and it's such a big game. I've talked about on this podcast before how hard it can be to start something new, whatever it is in life. Honestly, sometimes your brain just has a hard time wrapping itself around a new thing, and that can happen a lot in video games. And so even though I was excited to play Elden Ring, I think it took me probably a couple days or a week before my brain was like, this is fantastic and I'm all in, and this is the only thing I want to be doing whenever I have time to do it. Right. So that's pretty much where I'm at too. I haven't touched another video game. When I've had time, that's what I boot up, and that's all I've been doing. So
yeah, same. Yeah. A lot of times I'll play a couple of video games at once. I know that's probably not the best way to approach media or anything, but I can't help myself usually. But I've only been playing Elden Ring. So a lot of times I like to play Switch like in bed before going to sleep, because it's comfortable. I can lay back. I have a nice little stand for my Switch. But lately I'll go back into my office and just play Elden Ring in my office chair, or in my little, I have a couple of different setups in my office, but I'll just go and play until like 4 a.m. Like, I did that this weekend on Friday night, and I was like, okay, I need to go to bed a little earlier, just so that it's not hard to adjust back for the work week. And then I was up till past 4 a.m. Going through catacombs and fighting imps and getting obliterated, and then obliterating other things, and kind of the continual cycle of Elden Ring. But dude, it's so good.
It is fantastic. Have you been playing mostly on your TV with your computer?
About 50-50. Because sometimes
so you've been playing on the monitor too, huh?
Yeah, I've kind of been doing a mix of both for two reasons. One is sometimes like I'll take my lunch break, or I'll have a little bit of time in between a bunch of meetings or other things, and so I'll just swivel and play at my computer because it's next to all my work stuff. And then I don't have to turn on the TV, plug in because if I have the TV HDMI plugged in as well as my monitor plugged into the computer, sometimes it gets confused and it'll like keep switching the audio. I need to troubleshoot some of the issues with the setup.
Really?
So what I just do is I just unplug and replug like whichever HDMI cable I'm using, and that mostly has solved it. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons. The other reason is sometimes my youngest daughter likes to hang out in here with me, like while my wife is taking her shower and we're starting to get ready for bed. And she loves to sit on my comfy chair and watch things on the TV. And so when she does that, I'll play on the PC.
Gotcha. You turn on the babysitter and then you play on the monitor. Gotcha.
That's right. Although sometimes she comes over and she likes to. She's not even 2 yet, but she's actually kind of fascinated with Elden Ring. She calls it Guy because I have this knight that's running around, and she'll be like, Guy. I'm like, oh yeah, that's
that
Guy.
Distinguishes it from all other types of media.
Yeah, so I have to rename my Elden character name to just
You
Guy.
should name him Guy.
Just Guy. I should have done that. But yeah, so I've kind of been splitting it. I like it on both. Something about the smaller form factor of my monitors sometimes is nice because it's easier to keep track of everything, which is why I think a lot of professional gamers have smaller screens. Like on a TV, it's like, I don't know, it's a little more overwhelming sometimes, but maybe a little bit more immersive. My monitor is also 120 hertz, so that's kind of nice. But I'm kind of swimming in good options here. So, what about you? Are you playing? You're playing on your PC, but are you mostly playing on your TV, or are you doing it on your monitor, or both?
When we last talked about this, I pretty much started the game on my monitor, which I have an ultra wide here that I'm staring at, and it's a 120 hertz ultra wide 1440p monitor, and I really like it on the ultra wide, but I kind of have fallen back into the reason I simply don't game a lot at my desk is I don't want to sit at a desk. And so I've probably devolved into playing 70% on the TV back there. Occasionally, if it's during the day and I have a minute or I'm doing work or I'm doing some other things, I'll just play on the monitor if I have it half an hour or something. But if I'm done for the day, I want to be on the couch. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. It's a bummer that you have to unplug and plug in your HDMIs, though. Half the magic of this whole situation is that I just click a button and my screen goes from there to the one behind me, and it feels pretty. I feel like a tech savant every time it happens, even though it's just not that impressive. It feels that way.
My life is a crucible, but I survive
somehow. So, all right. So you restarted your PC playthrough.
Yeah.
And do you think you're back to where you left off on PlayStation?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, I haven't done everything exactly the same. And so on the PlayStation file, without giving away, like, I'm going to try to kind of go vague a little bit here, but I'll talk about a couple of regions. And
we may have some light spoilers.
Minor spoilers. We won't go into like super detail, but if you're really, really cognizant and you haven't played it yet, just, I guess, heads up. I can't believe Elden Ring dies at the end. I'm just kidding. Spoilers. So I started on PS5, and the first route I went is I did west and then east Limgrave. I went up and beat Margit, the Fell Omen, then started into Stormvale Castle. And then I kind of backtracked because Stormvale Castle was kind of hard, and it was like a long dungeon, and I got stressed out. So I went back into the open world, my safe space, where I can run away. And I went into Caelid, which for anybody who's played knows is like a nightmare land. Yeah. So it's a kind of a tough zone, especially early on. So I kind of went that direction, and I was doing stuff over there where I left off. And I think I got to level 29 or 30. In my PC game, I've avoided Caelid. I went and did the Southern Peninsula, which I hadn't done. So this weekend I spent beating that whole Southern Peninsula area. There's kind of a small dungeon at the very end of that region that I did that was super cool. And then now I actually went back to the castle and was going to fight Margit again, because you have to beat him, go through Stormvale Castle, and then once you go through Stormvale Castle, it opens you up into like the next big region, right? What I discovered is you can go around the castle and get into the lake area.
That you can.
without going through the castle. So I accidentally stumbled across that this weekend and was like, sweet. So I started exploring the lake area. Pretty dope. Pretty dope. The expansiveness of the world astounds me. But I decided, I was like, all right, if I keep going, I don't know when I'm going to get back to Margit, because he's a big pain of a boss. So I went back. I actually just beat him this afternoon. So now my plan is to finish Stormville Castle and then progress into kind of the second large region. So I would say I'm mostly on par with where I was. I think I'm level 29. So yeah. Where are you at? What are you thinking?
Oh my goodness, where am I at?
Yeah.
The stories I could tell you. Sarkasian.
I know.
No, yeah, I think that's the intended experience. They want you to obviously explore Limgrave. That's where they put you. Caelid does everything in its power to tell you you don't belong here.
Get out of here.
And if you can't get that message, then you're a little dense, because as soon as you step foot into Caelid, it's just murderer's row. So everything's poisoning you and rot and one shot
big and fast and powerful. Yeah.
So I ended up waiting to do the Southern Peninsula a bit too long, actually. I guess the game, I don't know, I kind of find the guidance of grace to be a little too ambiguous. And I hesitate to complain about it because I don't want too much guidance. I guess I'd rather there be less guidance than more, right? But I don't know, the on the map, the grace sites that like have the light pointing in a direction. Well, for starters, you can have, in different parts of the map, you can have different grace sites that are pointing in different directions. So they're just kind of pointing at areas of interest, I think, for progression. But the thing that's interesting is once you finish an area, at least I'm pretty sure this is the case. I mean, correct me, any out there who can, but you can complete an area. Let's say a grace is pointing you towards a dungeon, a castle. You complete the castle, you defeat the boss, whatever. The grace will still point in that direction, and it's really weird. Like, I wonder
it's
if
like
it's just a UI.
Evergreen. It's like an evergreen kind of UI decision. It's not contextual.
It's unintuitive. It's unintuitive to the player because you look at that and you're like, "How did I miss something? There's something still important there." And I've seen other people talk about this online. Anyways, point being, I didn't end up, even though one of the grace sites does point south. I, for some reason, the way the map was shaped, I thought south there would be a lot more. And I in my brain, I was like, okay, south of Limgrave, that's for later. And then eventually I came back around to it and I'm like, oh, this is this tiny little peninsula, not island, just a peninsula. And I was kind of wrecking everything there because I was a little bit over leveled for it. So, but yeah, I think and then the fact that you can circumnavigate the castle and head up to Liurnia, which is a minor spoiler, I suppose. But I think that's intended as well because Liurnia is on par. Most of Liurnia is on par difficulty-wise with Limgrave. So it kind of allows you to get a change of scenery. And I don't know how you feel or how far you've gotten into the lake or Liurnia as a whole. But so far, that's my favorite place, my favorite zone of, we'll say, the main three that you know of, right? And actually, despite being incredibly far in the game, I haven't left, with some caveats, I haven't left those three zones. I've pretty much, I've at this point now completed as much as I know of Limgrave, Caelid, and Liurnia. And Liurnia is my favorite. I love the atmosphere and the color. I mean,
the color.
I like the blue tones and all the hazy blue mist everywhere and the crystals that glow. That place is pretty fantastic. So
it's my favorite I've seen so far, and I like everything. Like, it's all cool, even the basic places. Because I think there are parts of Limgrave where I'm like, oh, this is a little more basic, and yet there are still these giant cliff sides and like oceans in the distance and towers, way off, kind of on the horizon. And I haven't been somewhere that's not amazing, but Liurnia is the coolest of them so far, and a lot of it I think is the color, like just such vibrant, cool colors. It's great. It's so good.
Yeah, I love the set piece too of just the very shallow lake with the soft the soft world building of all these towns that are like mostly submerged underwater slash underground.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, just a cool place. And then the sheer cliffs everywhere surrounding the lake.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome situation. So, but yeah, I mean, not to not to betray how much time has gone into this game at this point, but I think I'm like 70 hours in now, and I have not, as I told you, I have not left. I had the opportunity to kind of move on with the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, those three areas, those are kind of pretty early on. You can discover all three of those areas, and they're big, they're huge. I
Yeah.
mean, they're massive areas. And then probably at about the 20 to 30 hour mark, I had the opportunity to progress beyond those areas. And I've been playing the game very methodically and like wanting to savor each region
Mm-hmm.
and put off finding the end of the game. I don't want to know the limits of the map, right? So I've been kind
Yeah.
of playing, I've been slow burning this, slow rolling it, and really making sure I finish each zone. But yeah, I mean, 70 hours at this point. And I have just now completed Liurnia, Caelid, and Limgrave, and some other areas that are too spoilery, but they're not like their own designated areas. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Yeah.
it's just massive. Like it's insane because everyone says it's massive, and then you play the game and you're like, oh, it's massive, but it feels like at any point when you're saying that, you don't even know the half of
Yeah.
the map at that point. You know, I'm not even sure that I know half of the map at this point. So it's been crazy. So you said you haven't really done too much in Liurnia though.
No, I've spent maybe an hour in Liurnia, and the reason I doubled back was because I was like, this is so cool. I want to save it and get through. I think Stormvale Castles was neat too. So I need to get through that. But I was like, I've already beat Margit once. He was a pain. I need to just go beat him again, get the castle done, tie up any loose ends. I did pretty much everything on the Southern Peninsula. I've done most things in Eastern and Western Limgrave with a couple of exceptions that I'm going to come back to later. And then I'm not doing Caelid right now, but, yeah, my plan is to actually, yeah. So I just beat Margit. Plan is to finish Stormvale Castle next, and then I'll dive in. But I was worried that if I kept going, I wouldn't want to go back and do other things, and I kind of want that to be something that's waiting for me after beating my first big dungeon. So it's Liurnia is like a little dessert. It's a little treat.
Just a tiny dessert. So
Um,
your approach, you've been using summons, right?
yes, I am. I'm going to
What's your
use anything
go-to
at my
summon?
disposal. Um, so I have. I don't know if this might be considered mild spoilers, but I guess if you don't want to see summons, I'll put timestamps in so you can skip ahead to know what they are. But summons I have are the Pack of Wolves. There's like 3 wolves you can get. I think they're the first one you get. They're neat. I have a decaying rat, like a basic rat creature, not one of the bigger ones you
Nah,
can
those
find
are
later.
those are different rats. Yeah, you're just
Those
talking
are
like a sewer rat.
just like a sewer rat.
Yeah.
I have 2 skeletal soldiers with spears. What they're my recent favorite because what's cool about them is you know how when you're fighting skeletons and you kill them, they come back to life if you don't hit them while they're a pile of bones on the ground. Your
Oh, is it the
spirit
same for these?
it's the same for these.
Oh,
So
that's kind of cool.
yeah, because I pulled him out near the end of my Margit fight because I was like so close, but he was destroying me, and he killed them both pretty quickly with his big, laser axe or whatever his axe thing, um, and I was like running away from him trying to heal, and then one of them popped back up because he hadn't hit it again, and so it didn't buy me a ton of extra time with him, but it bought me just enough, and it was just a nice touch. I feel like something I love about this game is that a lot of the enemies feel unbeatable and they're very challenging until you learn how to fight them and progress to a certain extent. But then once you beat them and start getting gear from these various like places and challenges, you start to take on the qualities and the gear and the ability sets of the types of things you fight. Um, and I feel like the game is very rewarding. It rewards you for how challenging it is. And this was a nice little touch where it's like I have these two undead skeletons, and just like any other skeletons in the world, they have the same mechanic. And I could see other games not doing that, but it was neat.
Yeah,
Um,
the rules. The universe tends to abide by its own rules, which is
yeah,
always a good thing.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
think I have some
I
regular
haven't.
soldiers too, but I haven't used them a whole lot.
Yeah, forget
Oh,
those.
and jellyfish. I got jellyfish, which I haven't
I hear
used.
the jellyfish is good, but I tried it once on I think my PlayStation account, and it didn't seem like it did anything. So I don't know what the deal
I don't
was,
know if
but
maybe it holds aggro well or something, because like
I
the
don't know.
jellyfish seem fairly.
Did you have you found the NPC that allows you to upgrade your summons?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but that will be a nice thing to
Yeah,
have at
there's a
some
little.
point.
Yeah, you'll at some point find a way to upgrade them, and it's
You,
kind of a cool
you
way
know
that
what I
it
just
works.
remembered? I also unlocked. I fought a boss in the Limgrave area, who I found in some catacomb, and he dropped a summons of, I don't know if it's him or basically it's a boss that I can summon as a spirit
Yeah,
creature, but it requires 100 FP, and I don't have, like, I'm mostly doing a strength build,
yeah.
so I only have
So
like 70 FP right now, so I can't use him yet. But essentially have a boss I can summon at some point, which is neat.
to piggyback off that, so I haven't used summons in my playthrough at all because I'm a pro gamer, and
Much
I don't need
respect.
such I don't need such handhold mechanics. No, no, but I did kind of want to, I don't know, punish myself and have this be more challenging for no reason whatsoever. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do my first playthrough. I want to. Part of it was my the genesis of this thought was I want to master the boss fights. I don't want to use a crutch to get through them. I want to know their move sets and I want to beat them one on one for my first playthrough. Anything after that, then I'll do whatever the heck I want because clearly they designed this game with those in mind and they're a fun mechanic and a lot of them are cool. Like there's you'll do different mini catacombs and things and throughout the world where you'll find a summon at the end that is a reward, right? And if you're not using them, it feels a little bit less rewarding. So I think using summons is definitely the intended experience. I haven't been, and it started off as my goal. There have been various points throughout my playthrough where I'm like, "This is stupid. I'm just going to use a summon, whatever." But I've been able to stay strong because I can't afford any of them. I've put all of my
Mm,
stats into strength and endurance and vitality and some dex and intellect for weapons and
mhm.
my mind my mind is dumb. My
Your
mind
tiny
is
little mind.
my tiny little mind is the stat that controls how much FP you have for things like this, and mine's still at 11. I think I have probably less FP than you,
Mine's
and
at mine's at 10 or 11. Yeah.
a lot of the worthwhile summons are 80 FP, anywhere from 80 to 120, and I
Mm.
don't I'm not even close. So and now it costs so much for me to level up that every time I finally get enough to level up, I'm like, do I really want to spend the next 7 levels trying to get my FP high enough to use these?
Right.
So it kind of became a snowball effect, and now I'm just kind of where I'm at, where I can't really use them, and it is what it is. So
That's holding me back too, because I think I need 9 or 10 levels to be able to use this boss summon. And I'm like, that's cool and I want to use it, but you can only use them
that's a
occasionally.
lot.
Like, it's a lot.
Yeah,
You can only use them in some locations, and I'm even at the point where levels are costing me, I think, over 6,000 runes. I'm sure it gets way more at some point. You're probably laughing, but that's still like a
I think I'm
meaningful
at
amount.
65,000 right
Oh
now.
gosh, I don't even want to
Yeah.
think about it. Point being, it takes a while to farm those, and so 10 of those levels is a lot of time. And
And
I'm going
all
for,
the stats you wouldn't get to put it into strength
right.
or vitality, like
Well,
that's
and
a
I'm going strength, vitality.
you're truly counting on your summons if you're going to put that much resources for that
Right.
much time into
Yeah.
that stat.
Yeah, which
So
kind of feels like a specific build, which in some ways I
yeah,
think reduces the crutchiness of these things.
almost like a creature tamer. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
that kind of balances it a little bit, right? Because
yeah,
you yourself will be weaker, but you'll be able to summon more powerful enemies.
right.
So yeah,
And I will
I
say that
agree with that. That's kind of cool.
the cheaper summons you can summon um, are not super power. I guess you can upgrade them, so I don't. can't speak to how well the upgrading works, but like
Yeah.
fighting Margit just today, for example, I summoned my 2 skeletons and he wiped him out very quick. Like it's good for getting the heat off of you for 15 seconds. You can heal up,
Mostly a distraction for a minute. Yeah.
distraction, heal up, maybe get a hit or two, like a heavy hit or two in on him, which is very valuable. Don't get me wrong, but he'll take him down pretty quick. The skeletons were a nice surprise because one of them came back for me and distracted him one last time. But like I used, I think in my previous, on my PS5 game, I used the Spirit Wolves, and he has a lot of AoEs. So in the wolves, you get 3 of them, but they're kind of squishy. And so he took the wolves down like 10 seconds. So, you know, I think for the summons to really be effective, you kind of have to be optimizing for them. So, yeah, which is cool
Yeah.
because I intend to replay this game in the next few years and do a very different type of build.
Yeah.
And
Same.
my plan is to go more intellect, or like more spells, more summons, things like that. Versus my first playthrough, I'm doing strength,
Just
vitality,
bonk things on
endurance,
the
a
head.
little bit of dex. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. So I do have my weekly complaints here that I'll voice.
Ooh, let's hear it.
A new horse
Been
complaint.
waiting all week.
We
for
could have
this.
a horse complaint segment on NeverQuest. Why can't my horse sprint? Like obviously it gallops and it's running, but you know you push circle and it does a dash.
Yeah,
That's all it does.
it's just
So
kind
it's
of
very yeah. I just don't understand why when I'm traversing a very long distance, I have to
Mhm.
continually like dash with my horse, and it just doesn't feel great. I wish like the character you could just hold circle and it would go a little bit faster.
Mhm.
That's
I agree with
mildly
that because
irritating.
I feel like a lot of aspects of Torrent feel so good. Like jumping up the air columns and some of the other things are so freeing that it it would be nice to be able to feel faster in just long traversal
And
distances.
it just doesn't feel good to constantly push circle and kind of like lurch. You're just like
Mhm.
lurching on the horse.
Yeah,
It feels weird. So
it
don't love
does.
that. I was noticing that today. And then the other thing is not horse related, but there's a lot of dragons in this game. Spoilers. There's just dragons everywhere, and um, most of the time they're awesome. I mean, it's never felt cooler to fight a dragon than it does in Elden Ring when you can get on your horse and you're in this
Mhm.
giant meadow or lake or whatever it may be, and you're full gallop on your horse, dragons flying over, breathing fire, and you're circling back around to jump off and smash it on the head. And I mean, it's just fantastic. But the problem is, I've encountered some dragons in areas where there's not as much space, and the AI for the dragons is just super buggy. For starters, this area I was fighting them in, it was kind of up high, and there's a sheer cliff nearby, and it has a move where it'll like these dragons, they'll get up and they'll fly and they'll kind of come back and then they'll land, or they'll take off and breathe fire and then land. And they're supposed to like despawn and then respawn if they go somewhere they're not supposed to, which I have seen happen, and it kind of sucks because it's immersion breaking. Right in the middle of the
Mhm.
fight, the dragon despawns and then respawns back where you started. Thankfully, the health doesn't change, so you can
Mhm.
continue the fight. But in
That
this
is good.
area, literally, this dragon would, and this happened to me multiple times because this thing was hard to kill to begin with, but it would back up or fly, and then it would land like 300 yards below me, below this cliff, and it wasn't despawning. And so I would have to like sit at the top of the cliff and wait for it to despawn, or take like 5 to 7 minutes and ride around on my horse to get to the bottom, where inevitably, I did that once, it
Mhm.
would do its flying mechanic again and hit something that actually triggered the despawn mechanic, and then it would respawn all the way back up on top of the cliff. And it was just very frustrating to
Yeah.
fight these things because they're already difficult to begin with. They're difficult enemies. And so just the immersion breaking nature of this, and also the frustration of like just the sheer time that it felt so cumbersome to fight these things instead of like the majestic battle that usually should happen if you have enough space for them. So
Sounds like someone just needs to get good and run up and
dude,
down the
I
cliffs.
suck at this
No,
game, man.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's annoying. Hopefully, that's something they can adjust as they keep releasing
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
bug
like, why
fixes.
would
I don't know.
you shouldn't put all these dragons somewhere if you know their AI can't handle it, or find a way to keep them from flying off the cliff. I don't know. It was a little
Yeah,
frustrating. So
yeah,
it is what it is. And then lastly, this has been a lot of debate with Elden Ring, but the quest lines. There's all this. If Elden Ring were a Ubisoft game, that meme of like just stuff everywhere.
yeah.
And I agree. I agree with that. I love that Elden Ring is very minimal and immersive, and you have to pay attention. But FromSoft really do still need to get better at handling quests. We need, as with most things, I hesitate to say tweak the dial because I like it less than more.
Hmm.
But I do think we need to tweak the dial a little bit on these quests, because I have been. I mean, just to put it simply, if your player is invested, paying attention, and really trying to follow a quest line, and gets lost several times, there's a problem. Like, there's just a problem there, because personally, I'm enjoying a specific quest line. I'm paying attention to it. I'm purposefully moving through the world to follow this quest line. And twice during this quest line, I was just like, "What's up? This dude said meet me here. He's not here, and I have no real recourse to figure out what happened. So I have to get online and very carefully kind of search the steps, make sure I don't spoil anything, and then find out, oh, this happened." And you're just like, well, how would I have ever? I would have never known that. I would have lost the trail of this quest here. And you might say that's the intended design, and maybe it is, but I don't like that, because
Hmm.
they're so enjoyable otherwise. That's what I was enjoying in the game at that moment, and so I hate that I have to go look these things up. I wish there was some compromise here, where we don't have a compass or something telling us where to go, but just a little bit more information given to the
Yeah.
player, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. I think there's a YouTuber, Ratatosker, who had a video talking about how Morrowind handled quests, and that you sort of had like a journal that just had a couple of entries, like this person said they want you to find this thing in this location, and that was it. It was basically like, if you think of the text that the NPC says to you when you're talking to them, could I just have a record of that? Like, what's the difference of me like writing that down versus, I don't think that's the same as giving me compasses or whatever. But you could go back and be like, okay, what did Kenneth Height say to me when I talked to him last? You can go
Kenneth
think,
Height.
oh, Kenneth Height. Um, you could,
You just can't help but say Kenneth Height, like it's
Kenneth
just,
Height. Such a good character. Voice, at least. But yeah, I mean, if you just had a record essentially of this person said, you know, go over here and we'll talk, and then you still have to figure it out because that's information they've given you, and it's not like putting a beacon on your map. It's not, littering everything. That could be a decent compromise, but I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough because, not, I won't spoil anything here, but like sometimes a character will say, "Hey, thanks for doing the thing. Now I'm headed over here. Meet me here." And you're like, "Cool, great, love you, bro. Let's go do that." And you show up to the place, and you look around, and because of how FromSoft handle things, you don't know, do I just need to go another 2 hours into this area before I find him, or is something wrong? And so if they want to pull a switcheroo, or like, oh, let me think of an example that's not a spoiler. Like, let's say someone said meet me here, and they got kidnapped on the way, right? It's tough because in the real world, how would you know? I guess you get a call at some point, right? But in Elden Ring, it's like, okay, so something happened to them on the way, but as a player, I don't know when it's time to know that. When it's
Mhm.
time to be like, okay, something's wrong, because they could be just farther into whatever area they told me to meet them in.
Yeah,
So there just needs to be some. If you want to switch things up or do a plot twist or whatever, you got to find some way that's not too fourth wall breaking
yeah,
to give the player a hint of what happened. Whereas in this case, there's just no hint, and I was like, what is going on? I was like hours into this area, and I'm like, he is not here.
yeah.
I don't know what happened. So, anyways, those are my minor gripes. Overall, I'm a critic, and this game is fantastic, and I truly don't know how. I don't know how long this game was in development, but if this game is as large as it looks like it's going to be, even at the point I'm into this game. I don't know how they made this in 5 or 6 years, even. Like, it seems too large to fathom. I don't know if this game has been in development since Dark Souls 2. Like, I don't know what they're doing over at FromSoft, but other than the technical performance, other studios should take note of this game, and hopefully they do. So
absolutely,
that's Elden it for Ring's, me on
Elden Ring's
my
great
adventures.
That's I don't have a ton of other complaints either. My one other complaint is technical performance. So I've had a noticeable amount of frame drops, and where like it'll get choppy and like throw you off, and it's started happening to me here and there during fights, which is the most frustrating. And so I've died once or twice because of it, and like had fights interrupted a few times because of it. It's not constant, still playable on PC, but man, like I can imagine that happening at the wrong moment in a boss fight and just like completely losing it. So
yeah,
hopefully they get that better under control, because otherwise, like, I think this might be a contender for my favorite game of modern times. It's hard to say. I'm not far enough into it to like make a full evaluation, but this is one of the best things I've played in a long time. I think this is certainly going to be in my top 5, probably top 3. And I think it has a shot at being like my number one game that I love right now. Like as a kind of my all time list. So
yeah. As I play it, I don't know. I think it's definitely a top 5 game all time. I struggle to feel like it's weird. As much as I enjoy playing this game and I want to see every part of it, and it's just all encompassing, I still we'll see when it's all said and done. But like, I don't love being in this world in the same way that I loved being in Hyrule and Breath of the Wild. Like, there's just something. I think it's just the fact that everything in this game is trying to kill you. Right? This is almost. Yeah. It's not a horror experience, but the effect it has on you is similar. Like, everything is trying to kill you. It's tense pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And so, as much as amazing of a game as it is, it just doesn't quite. It's not as peaceful, right? Yeah. Zelda Breath of the Wild is so peaceful to exist in. So I don't know. I'm curious where I'll land on it when it's all said and done. But it's definitely going to be up there.
That feels like the type of thing that would weigh into my calculation, and something about it works for me. But I totally understand that argument, because it is not a very peaceful world to be in almost ever. There are some scenic vistas and locations and all of that, but Breath of the Wild, you can get lost with just the atmosphere, and you rarely feel like terrified, save for when you walk by one of those ancients and the little piano notes happen in Zelda. That can get you a little freaked out, but for the most part, that game's pretty zen. So cool. Well,
okay, I'm trying to log into Fantasy Critic here. I can't remember my email. I'll pull it up on my phone, because I wanted to, like you said, take a quick take a look at where we're at with that. I haven't actually looked at it
I thought you just lost interest in our conversation. You're just perusing the web.
Yeah. No, actually, my I don't know if this has ever happened to you. My shift key got stuck, and I could not figure out why I was trying to type in my email, and the weirdest stuff was popping up. And I couldn't figure out what was going on, and then I saw that my shift key was stuck down. So let me see. Pull it up.
I'll get you. Yeah. So we while he pulls that up, I think.
Am I still ahead?
You are still ahead. We thought it'd be fun to pull up our Fantasy Critic Leagues. Maybe I can show a couple screenshots as we talk about it, but it's not going as well for me as I'd like. So
I think, to me, it looks like we're pretty even at this point, honestly.
It really depends. So
because hold on, I have 5 games. Is that right? 5 games.
You have 5 games,
and you have 4 and a counter pick. So I think we're pretty much even.
I think it's going to come down to the counter. Well, we'll have to see. So I counter picked Sifu, which got 80 points. And so that's 10 points against me. And I'm kind of worried about my other counter pick, which is Breath of the Wild 2. I don't think it's going to come out this year, but if it does,
you're screwed. If it does, you're straight screwed.
I am so
like, I think your entire like chances hinge on if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out this year.
It really
If
do.
it
I
doesn't,
kind of put all my
I
chips on
think
the
you
table with
win.
this one. Yeah.
If it doesn't, I think you win. If it does, I think
Yeah.
you're completely
I
screwed.
went
So
all
for those who
in.
don't,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, by the way, this is I think everyone's heard of fantasy football at this point, where you imaginarily pick players and they belong to you, and what they do in real life gives you points, and you beat your friends and you rub it in their face, right?
Yeah.
So that's all this is. It's just the video game version of that, where at the beginning of the year, Zach and I picked a bunch of games that hopefully are going to come out in the year 2022. And then this is all based on Metacritic, which you could argue is inherently flawed. But depending on how it does on Metacritic, you will get a certain amount of points. Anything above 70, you get a point for everything above 70. So if your game that you picked gets an 80, you get 10 points. If it gets an 87, you get 17 points. The difference is anything above 90, any point above 90 is worth 2 points. So if I haven't lost you, you had Elden Ring, which got like a 97.
Yeah.
Did it finish at a 97?
It
No,
finished
95.
95. So
but somehow you got 31 points. I don't know how that works, but those 5 extra points above 90 should count for 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you have 31. This is broken, and I demand a recount.
Nope, no recounts, no recounts.
The only other wrench real quick to throw into this is that we have counter picks as well. So at the beginning of the year, we picked I think it was like 8 games that were going to come out this year. So we each had a roster of 8. And then I think we have a total roster of 15. So throughout the year, we have to pick up an additional 7 games to fill out a full roster over the course of the year.
Yeah.
So that means week over week, we can pick up games when they're announced or whatever. But during the draft, we each had to pick 2 games of the other person. So I had to pick 2 of Zach's games to counter pick. And that means whatever points they get, I get negative. Or if it's below 70, it's negative for him, I get positive. So the strategy there is you obviously want to pick whatever games you think are going to kind of bomb the most on their list, or a game that you don't believe is coming out this year. Because if it gets pushed to 2023, you essentially get off with a 0 for your counter pick, which is great. And the other person is stuck with it too. That's the other thing is if your game gets counterpicked, you can't drop it. So anyways, there's all the nitty gritty details of this whole situation. He counterpicked Sifu, which I think worked out pretty well for you. 10 points is kind of the tipping point. If you get 10 points or less from your counterpick, I think that's a win. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So Sifu, honestly, it sounds like Sifu is a quality game that could have hurt me a lot more than it did.
I think it should have been higher than an 80, but we'll see.
From that standpoint, maybe I got off kind of lucky. My other counter pick, like I said, was Breath of the Wild 2, mainly because I don't think it's going to come out this year. And I desperately hope it doesn't, simply for this stupid fantasy league. If it does come out and I lose horribly, at least we get another amazing video game.
It's kind of a win-win, right?
Yeah, it's a win-win in that sense. But what's better, an amazing new video game or my?
Because for me, if it doesn't come out, that's just like
it's just
bad
sucks
all
for
me, and that sucks for me.
Yeah, that's true. Whereas your 2 counter picks are Forspoken, which comes out in June. I'm actually pretty excited for this one, but
I'm a little worried about it at this point.
Yeah, I feel like there's a chance for this to not do well. I have to say, like, I also have Ghostwire Tokyo. You didn't counterpick it, but I have Ghostwire Tokyo on my list.
I should have.
Because the combat in that looked really dynamic and exciting to me. And so I thought, this isn't really my cup of tea. I'm probably not going to play this, but I think it's going to land really well. I think it'll be in the 80s or something. And it's, got a 76. So it's still 6 points. It's not nothing, but it didn't do as well as I thought. I am a little worried that Forspoken might be all style and no substance. Not that I think it is, but I feel like there's a chance for that to happen. The hope is that it's great, though, because if it does well, it's going to be points against you and points for me. The other one you counterpicked was Starfield, which this one has.
Regretting.
This one has me worried because I don't know how confident we are yet.
Everyone is talking like it's definitely coming out this year. Like I haven't heard any whispers, nothing about it being pushed, and I'm just like, man, I am starting to kind of sweat over here because if Starfield comes out, I think it'll be. I don't know that it'll be as bad as Breath of the Wild, but it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt if Starfield comes out. I think so.
I don't know. Like Bethesda's had some pretty crappy launches, so I feel like there's a chance for that to hurt
Yeah.
me in that sense, but I feel like there's enough
I
pressure
think
on them
they're
at this
all in
point.
on this one though. Yeah.
Right. I think they're all in. This isn't like the fifth or sixth iteration or whatever on a franchise. And they need to not save face, but they kind of have to work their way back into trust and good graces. So my hope
It's
is
also
that
the
they're
first it's also the first huge exclusive release for Xbox, right? Since they've been purchased, it's the first kind of flagship Bethesda
yeah.
Xbox trying to compete with Sony first party, right? So
Yep.
I think that's the plan. Again, plans don't matter if they don't execute. So who knows? But I do think that like they know they have to come back from Fallout 76 and just kind of actually a lot of different releases that have been pretty bad. So I don't know. We'll see. It's funny that I guess we're not that far into the year. I was going to say we're pretty far into the year and we still have like just zero concept of what's coming out this fall. I mean, it's all up in the air still currently, which
yeah, it is a
again,
little
we're only
weird.
in March, so
It's almost April. How weird is that? It's April in a couple of days.
we'll know. We'll know. I guess I don't know when we'll know. I was going to say around E3 time, but who knows if companies will even abide by that. I imagine by May or June, we'll have a pretty good sense of the year at that point. I mean, you would hope.
I hope so.
I guess PlayStation 5 didn't announce its launch until September, was it? Was it September?
I think it was September. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I might be misremembering.
I think it was.
But anyways,
September, yeah.
I almost picked kind of the three I was debating between counterpicking with you were Forspoken, Starfield, and Ghostwire Tokyo. And Ghostwire Tokyo is the one I opted out of. And now I'm like, man, I would switch either of those two for Ghostwire Tokyo with a 76. So I was much more confident in counterpicking Forspoken before it got delayed. And now I'm a little bit worried that they'll have enough time to
and
bring
before
that
we saw
story
some
up
more
where it would've
actual
been.
gameplay, like we still haven't quite seen as much as I want, but the combat looks pretty cool. So I think it's making me feel better than I felt more nervous about the pick when we first started and feeling a little better about it now. But as it stands,
Go ahead. Me go ahead? All right.
Yes, you go ahead.
Before we talk about as it stands, I don't know if you saw this, but I did pick up Hogwarts last week.
I was meaning to pick that up, and I'm kind of bummed.
I was like, Zach's not even going to remember. I'll just sneak this.
I totally forgot.
In.
Yeah. Which I think that's a good call. It looks pretty good.
I think it'll review well despite all the controversy surrounding it. I think it looks very polished from what we've seen, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to get good numbers.
I agree for the same reasons. So, as it stands, you've had 5 games release out of your fantasy list. I've had 4 release, and you're at 75. I'm at 57. So not crazy far off. Plus the counter pick. Yeah. So, I think it's kind of not quite neck and neck, but close, and we still have a ways to go, but it's been kind of fun.
I think quite honestly, you're ahead, to be honest, because you're, 18 points behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I counterpick and I eat 10 points. If you get a game that has a 78, we're tied, and we're both at 5 games. So, I mean, I think you're ahead at this point, honestly, even though it doesn't look like it. So
that's true. I mean, I think the real deciders are going to be a couple of the games on each of our lists, whether they come out and how well they do based on how well we think they're going to do.
The big names at the end of the year are going to kind of
make it or break it.
But, yep. So, what else did you have on here?
We could wrap it up by I think Elden Ring is on the horizon for a little while for each of us, but I'm probably going to play some other things in the meantime, because that's just how I am. And I don't know, maybe you're nearing the halfway point and you're starting to think about what game you're going to play next. But do you have any other gaming plans?
To think about that.
Yeah.
It's been a terrifying thought as I continue to get further into Elden Ring. I'm like, this means soon there will be no Elden Ring. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we've gone through the gauntlet here. The games that have come out from February to March have been I think it's been the most packed first quarter we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I really do think that. And I don't know what's after Elden Ring, to be honest. I would love to play Horizon. But I just don't I don't know if or when that game will ever be in the state I want it to be in. So I don't think I don't think that'll be ready in time. I kind of want to check out Kirby, but not enough to go buy it. So I don't think I'm going to do Kirby for a while. I do want to check out Tunic.
That was going to be my guess.
In some, I don't know if I'll do it on PC or it's not on PlayStation. So I guess I'll either do Game Pass or just buy it on PC. But I want to check that one out. I'd love Gran Turismo to be fixed, which that's a whole other topic we could get into. And for me, Gran Turismo 7 is not fixed until there's an offline mode.
Yeah. Wouldn't hold your breath.
And I hesitate to put any time into that game until I see some changes, just because I just don't like what's going on there. But the only other game that I'm actually kind of finding myself wanting to play and check out, and a little bit more than I thought I would, is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It was kind of on my radar. It was one that I was like, yeah, I want to check this out. But as we got closer to release, it became clear to me that, especially with Elden Ring happening right now, like this is not a release game for me. I'll pick this up on sale at some point. But I've been hearing really good things about it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still very Borderlands-ish. But we talked about this a little bit. It might have been, I think we did the review roundup on our news section. And it's hitting pretty well. And a lot of people are saying the writing and the voice acting with Andy Samberg and Will Arnett, I can't imagine that being bad. So I actually really want to play through that. And I like the fact that it's I think it's got crossplay and co-op. I don't know how many people you can co-op with. I don't know if it's up to, I'd have to check that out because it'd be cool. I mean, I was planning me and my brother can co-op through it, but if it's up to 3, we could all do it.
Yeah.
That's the one for me. That's kind of something I actually want to play after Elden Ring is over.
Nice. Yeah. Gran Turismo, I've put aside for now because I've had several bad experiences where I got booted in the middle of like a trophy I was trying to get right at the end. And that was not when they had their 30-hour outage even. Like I got booted for maintenance once. And then another time I got booted, they didn't say anything about server maintenance and it booted me off and I lost the trophy. And then it was back online 10 minutes later. And it wasn't my internet because everything else was working both on my PS5 and on like I did an internet speed test and everything was fine. So I just don't trust this game not to crap out on me and kick me offline. So I'm just waiting. You know, I'll probably play more Gran Turismo at some point, but it's just too frustrating. So, I'm torn between Tunic and Kirby. I think I'm going to pick up Kirby and play it on my Switch, just because I like having a game I can take with me on the go when that happens. And I kind of want
get it physical and beat it, and then I'll borrow it from you.
Okay, sounds good. I think another reason I kind of want to get Kirby is because, like we talked about, the Lands Between is an amazing location, but it's so brutal and it's such a dark fantasy world that I thought being a little pink bubblegum man who goes into mouthful mode sounds like a nice change of pace. So I'll probably pick that up pretty soon here. Tiny Tina looks good as well. I think that looks fun. If you guys pick it up and it is 3-player co-op, I might pick that up sooner. So that's kind of what's on the roster for me. Horizon, I feel like my TV makes Horizon look good enough that I could play it, but I also feel no rush to play it if I have other things I'm enjoying, which will give Guerrilla Games more time to get things into a slightly better state performance-wise. So
hopefully, I mean, maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll play Horizon when I get a new TV. Like
there you go.
Maybe 6 months from now it'll still be broken and I'll have to play it on an OLED in resolution mode. But as far as, I mean, we should know a lot more about the end of the year coming up. I mean, Sony's supposed to have, I'm sick of all these Sony rumors that never pan out, but this week there's some pretty heavy rumors that Sony is going to have some announcements or some sort of something. So we'll stay tuned to see what that's about. Cause we really don't know what's going on, especially with Sony after Gran Turismo. I mean, we assume God of War's coming. We don't know anything else. So, and one last thing, I forgot to circle back to Elden Ring real quick. I remember I brought up that the fall damage felt inconsistent,
Mm-hmm.
and I came to find that this is a common thought online. It's not just me, which I didn't think it was, but it's always nice to commiserate. And I found a video. I'll call him out here. It's a YouTube channel. His channel name is Illusory Wall. So like there are in Dark Souls games, those fake walls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has a video literally called "Why Does Fall Damage Feel Random?" And he actually like went through the scientific process of detailing how fall damage works in game. And the reason it feels random is because you might find this interesting. Well, you might not because you haven't played the old Souls games, but the amount of distance you can fall before dying has not changed in Elden Ring, which was shocking to me because in Elden
Hmm.
Ring it feels like you can fall for eternity and not die. And all I remember from the old Souls games is fall damage was brutal. Well, what happened is, so there's a certain distance at which you start to take damage, right? And then there's a certain distance at which it's fatal. In the old Souls games, the distance at which you start to take damage was like 6 meters, so like almost nothing. And then from 6 meters to 20 meters, that was the amount of distance where you would take damage, and it's a percentage of your health based on how far in that range you are, right? Well, in Elden Ring, 20 meters is still the distance you can fall before taking fatal damage, but they increased the amount of distance you can fall before taking damage to 16 meters. And so
Interesting.
now the window in which you take damage is so much smaller. It's just 4 meters,
Wow.
Which explains it so well. And honestly, I think is kind of bad design. I think they should change that because it really does. It makes players feel like things are random because you'll take a fall and you'll lose 25% of your health, and then you'll take a slightly larger fall and you'll die, and you're just like, that escalated really quickly. Well, what's happening is that when you took that 25% damage, you fell 16.5 meters.
Mm-hmm.
And so you only had to fall another 3.5 meters to die. But it doesn't
Interesting.
communicate that very well on your health bar
Yeah.
because the max amount of damage you can take from falling is 50% of your health. So if you fall 19.9 meters, you'll lose 50% of your health. But in
Mm.
your brain, you're going, oh, I could have fallen farther without dying.
Yeah.
When in reality, zero point 0.1
Not
meters
really.
would have killed you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very enlightening and cleared up
Yeah.
some. It clears up some frustration for not understanding, but also I think from a game design standpoint, I think they need to tweak that a little bit
Yeah. Thanks.
without
Thanks to
breaking the game, hopefully.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Thanks to Illusory Walls, a real veritable Isaac Newton of the lands between. Um,
precisely,
I think my guess is that they made that tweak because there's so much more verticality that there are times where they want you to be able to fall farther without it
oh,
hindering you as
absolutely,
much.
yeah,
So it's a tweak that makes sense, but I totally agree because that few extra meters, especially as you're falling from large heights, um, it's your brain can't really tell super specifically exactly how far you've fallen. So if it's within a small range of meters where you go from, like you said, a small percentage all the way to fatality, uh, it's confusing. I've noticed the same thing. So at least we understand how the mechanics work. I'll link the
yeah,
video, but
yeah. I just
it
wanted
does.
to
It's kind of odd.
spread the news. I totally understand why they increase the distance you can fall without taking damage. It would be so frustrating if you took
Mm-hmm.
10-meter leaps everywhere and were losing health. But with that change, I think they should have also changed the distance you can fall before dying to maybe even 25 meters.
Mm-hmm.
If it was 16 to 25, then you have a full 9 meters. And also, I think what would help is if the max amount of damage you could take wasn't 50%, but like maybe 75%. That way you have a much more gradual scale. And by the time you lose 75% of your health, it's much more communicating to you subtly, like, oh, you were really close to death. Um, as it stands, it does a pretty poor job of communicating. And that's why people think it's random. So there you have it. there's my update for you from
You
a
learn
couple weeks
something
ago.
new every day. Yeah. If our one subscriber who's not part of our friend group is from FromSoft, there's a couple of free ideas to improve Elden Ring from
I bet
two
you they are.
guys on the internet who
Odds
don't know how to.
are they are. So
Odds are good.
Glad we got communicated that directly to FromSoft here. Is that it for you?
That's all I got.
Good. I'm sick of talking to you.
Same. Let's get out of here.
Let's
get back into the lands between.
Exactly. Well, thanks for sticking with us if you did. This was another episode of NeverQuest. And remember, you can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/NeverLag. And we, as well, thank you for supporting us here on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy hearing us ramble, consider tossing us a like or a subscribe or something like that. We'd appreciate it. But that's it for us today, and we will catch you guys next time on NeverLag.